Hello, guys. I'm really happy to be here today with Sarah. For those who are watching us first time, my name is Chris Klimek, and I'm the founder and creator of the Holistic Fascia Release. And today we will talk about the fascia itself. But first, Sarah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you. My name is Sarah. I've been working in holistic well-being for over 10 years. Along the way, I've trained in yoga, different kind of massage modalities, and more recently, in the last 2 years, I've been a dedicated student of your work. So that's how I got here.
Okay, so let's dive to the fascia. So fascia in general, it's connective tissue. This is how we describe fascia. What it means, Sarah, for you, the connective tissue.
Well, it's connecting all of the structures of the body. And what's really interesting is that, of course, for many years, it's been sort of discarded as the least interesting part of the body. And now we're learning that actually it's much more important to the whole structure, to communication. I've learned from you that the fascia communicates faster than nerves, which I found mind-blowing to learn. um, but it also holds the subconscious patterns of movement and the emotional subconscious patterns. So this is really interesting for me as well.
Yeah, in regards to the speed of sending the information, as you mentioned, that our nervous system is really, really quick. It's sending informations with the speed of 100 to 103 meters per second, which is really fast. But if we compare that to fascia, which is sending informations with the speed of 300 millions of meters per second, it seems to be very slow. So that's why, as Sarah mentioned, we not we are not able to grasp the all information consciously because our brain, our nervous system is simply too slow. So certain things are happening without our conscious involvement, but they are happening. And the funny thing about the fascia is that was discarded as an unnecessary tissue and is just disrupting the operation field and was removing and pushing on the side without taking care of it. But now we understand that it's very important how we cutting the fascia when we are in the operational theater, when we're doing the surgeries. The more and more surgeons are mindful and taking care of fascia, and when they put in the stitches, they also looking to hold on fascia in the right manner with the uh, directions of the fibers. The funny thing about the nervous system is also that we somehow, in collective consciousness, thinking about the nervous system as something above, something most important, something which is the ruler of everything. But in reality, it's not exactly the situation. It's one of the systems which is cooperating with the others. And this is the right place for the nervous system, as well as for fascia. It's not above any other systems. We're talking about fascia with the passion because we're still discovering fascia is bringing a lot of positive effects on the healing journey, on the health, on the habits, emotional stuff, but still it's not above anything else in our body, because everything is connected with everything and is co-working to bring us to the place of balance, to keep our body, to keep us balanced through the life. And we know that the different organs, they have a different lifespan, let's say, or changes according to the lifetime of our body, but still it's all one system. It's everything working towards our good. So we need to take care of each system. The fascia itself, it's not only connecting, but also it's blending and melting with organs. And recently we discover in the fascia world also it's blending with the bones. It's going inside the bones. It's creating the structures for the bones. So by the mobilization, because we need to touch two things here: mobilization and manipulation of the fascia. Sarah, would you like to express your experience with mobilization and manipulation of the fascia?
Well, first of all, I feel like something important that we have to mention here is when we're talking about fascia release, it may to some extent give the wrong impression, as if we're always making something looser, um, which, I had sort of, I used to accept for that to be true, but what I've learned from you is what we're actually doing in the way that we're engaging with the tissue is we are re-energizing it. So that means that sometimes things are able to feel smoother or more spacious, but at the same time, there might be some parts of the body that need more support. And this is an important piece when, let's say, we're working with people with hypermobility, because they already have a body that is too loose in many places. So giving them more space or more release may not be so helpful for them. So I think that, as a little side note, is important for people to understand. We're not always just stretching something out. We are kind of restoring balance. Is that fair to say?
It's very fair to say, and that's how I experienced this in practice. When I was running the clinic in London, I had lots of clients who were yoga instructors, teachers. They use different names for running the yoga classes, yoga workshops. And they were the most difficult for the classic physiotherapy, actually, because they had a really good range of movement in the joints, even hypermobility, and then they experienced pain, really struggle with pain. And most of them, they were pushing even more stretching because they were believed that the pain is caused by tension in some structures, usually muscles or the ligaments. But actually, the pain was the information there is lack of stability because they are overstretched, actually, by the practice what they were doing. So, through the fascia mobilization, we discovered that their bodies start to get more tension, but they were not tense. The tension wasn't the painful tension or what we classically think about tension in the muscles or the joints or ligaments. It was a tension which was creating stability. So
And maybe we
we
can say it's how force is redistributed through the whole system.
exactly. We re-educate their body how to distribute the force in the positive way to keep the balance in the body. So fascia itself, it's the system which is distributing the force in movement, actually. And it has this ability to stack, to be stick to some other tissues, because we have too much sitting position, for example, or our diet is not really matching our needs. Yes, hydration or dehydration rather is the very important part of our life. Also, the negative breath patterns, because in general, this is what I want to touch. In our education system, is missing point. The missing point is to teach children how to breathe, is to back to the breath exercises, to breath habits. Uh, and then I had this personal experience. My son had some tendency to short breath, and he was quickly referred to GP to with assumption, and GP was taking this assumption straight on board that he has asthma. But we didn't accept this diagnosis actually, and we started to do the breath exercises in home. I encouraged him to do the cardio. We were running, cycling, according to his capacity. And then he was by the age of 6, with this kind of issues, disturbed breath. Now he's 14 and he's not taking any medications for the asthma, and he doesn't have any issues with breath. But he's active, physically active. He's doing some practices in volleyball and so on, and we're doing a lot of outdoor activities, and there's no problem with the breath. And now he already learned to recognize that he's breathing in the funny way, so you need to just calm the breath. And I had this experience as well, because when I was 6, I was diagnosed with asthma, and I supposed to take the steroids for asthma, but I was the naughty one, and I never took them much or at all. I was just lying to my parents. I'm taking them. And I was, no, 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 no. And I was doing a lot of running. I was a very active child. And I signed up for the volleyball team as well. And in my adult life, I had only one incident of asthmatic breath when I was like around 30, 28 years old. I was really stressed with my academic work, and I was overweighted back then. And it gets me to the asthmatic incident, and I said, look, no, I need to just start to move again. No way. I don't want to feel this way. I need to put more attention to how I'm breathing and to just do the cardio, do the movement. And it's gone completely. For example, my brother, uh, all the best for my brother. He's taking the steroids for most of his life, and every now and then, unfortunately, he has these episodes of short breaths, because the steroids are not the cure for it. They can calm down the symptoms, but they will not cure you from asthma. It might be very not according to the mainstream idea of asthma treatment, but this is what it is. We just need to back to re-educate the kids. Whenever we notice they have a funny breath, short breath, we should to just sit down with them and taught them to breathe.
And also watch out for nose and mouth breathing. because that's
Oh, yeah.
creating huge problems if that goes undiagnosed.
Of course, it's bringing a lot of problems with the structure of the mouth, with our breath capacity, and so on, so on. The good thing is we can also re-educate the breath through the fascia mobilization. But as I said, we need to touch the mobilization first and manipulation, because this is very often confused. And when we have a client in the treatment room, they might have some manipulation experience with the fascia, because there's many modalities of treatment of the fascia, and they come in with the sensation it will be super painful. It will bruise their body, and they are almost afraid of fascia work because the experience is so brutal and painful. And this is what we avoid. How it looks in your treatment experience, Sarah? How are you working with people?
I think that I have met clients over time that are really sensitive, but this goes back to what we've talked about in a previous episode, the capacity to, no, the ability to observe the capacity of the client. So we are not treating everyone exactly the same. And I think we've had a conversation maybe a year ago about how we were struggling doing studies on this kind of method, because we're not doing 5 seconds of this, exactly this amount of pressure for that amount of time, because every body is different and has different needs, and the way that the body releases is different. So it can happen that people are meeting some discomfort, but then sometimes I'm observing they have stopped breathing. And when they're breathing, they can move through it. Sometimes it might also mean that they are not quite ready to shift something. So, we are not completely free of sensation, but the way that we're meeting the sensation and the attitude and expectation on the body is very different.
Exactly. So, summarizing and simply saying, when we thinking about the mobilization, it's to mobilize something to its capacity in this very moment. So we want to encourage the mobilization of flow of movement, we call it this way, or distribution of the energy or the force of movement through the body, through the fascia in the body, to the level which is easily handled or is possible to handle for our client. We don't want them to cross their boundaries, because then we're moving to manipulation. So we putting more external force, and we forcing fascia beyond actual capacity in this very moment. It's still in the range of the capacity of fascia. We don't breaking the fascia, but it's beyond the capacity which is in this very moment, which is connecting this experience with sensation of pain. And here comes the breath as well. Because most of people, when they're experiencing the painful situation, it's affecting their breathing pattern. Did you notice it?
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. So when we go into this spectrum of manipulation, it's connected with the pain, and it's changing the breath pattern. Either they hold breath completely, either they go to chasing dog breath, like really quick and fast, which is somehow connecting with sensation of release from the stuckness of the fascia. And in this way, we enforcing the idea within the body, they need to use this breath, this sense of breath or breathlessness to acquire the release from the fascia, which is in the way, from my perspective, encouraging negative effect.
Mm. You know, something that I really admire about your approach of how to work with people is your interest in long-term stability of the client. And this is something that, having trained with lots of different people and met lots of different therapists, I feel like there's not enough conversations around what happens to somebody 6 months or 12 months or even later after the intervention that we've done, because we can initially make people feel euphoric by giving them a release, but what happens later?
Exactly. Exactly. This is not enough conversation in the field. This is what I feel as well. Because we are mainly, is in collective consciousness, in collective pattern of thinking, that we are focused on the symptoms. So we are kind of instant society. We're looking for instant release, here and now. And it's also connected to the culture of uh, working, actually, in the factories or corporation. You need to back to the work as fast as possible to be productive in a way. But actually, it doesn't bring us to real well-being of the person. Where is in the long-term well-being of the person? Where is the well-being of the collective? The issue is in some ways buried in the way how we measure the life quality of the human beings. Because in general, we tend to measure it through the numbers, mathematics, simple numbers, which of course, to the some degree, applying, but it's not full picture. There are the qualities of our life which is difficult to measure through the numbers. And here comes the long-term effects, long-term changes in our functionality of the body and in our consciousness itself in general. So when we applying the mobilization, we are not looking here and now. Of course, we are looking as well, but this is not our main focus. Our main focus is to create the space, to create ability for the human being to change in the long term. Because from my perspective, it's really interesting if you have some habit for 30 years of your life or 20 years of your life, and you're expecting after 1 hour session to completely change this habit and the effects of this habit in your life, how reasonable it is. It's really difficult. And someone told me once, someone, a wise person, it's better to do one small step at a time rather than big jump, because you don't know where you will land it with it. So one stable step at the time is bringing us more effective to the long-term solution for our issues rather than the huge release and then what?
Yeah.
So I create the steps in the process, which I and my team tested through years, 10 years, over the 10 years of working with hundreds, with thousands of clients. And we were able to choose the pathway which is most effective. But it's, as you said, difficult to put it in the measurements of the evidence-based medicine and to create the procedure which is applying for everyone because it's not existing. And it's, from my perspective, funny to think this way. It's possible to measure something which will affect in the same way everyone.
Yeah, especially when we know we don't like all the same music, we don't like all the same food, we don't, we have so many preferences in every other aspect of life. So kind of weird to think it would be like that.
Exactly. But we're trying to apply kind of communistic approach to this thing. Everyone is the same and every therapist is the same. But it's even difficult from the perspective of my hands are different than yours. So expecting you will apply the same thing in the same way, exactly the same way, it's rather funny, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And we've all observed, we spend, what I like about this fascia community, we spend regular time with other therapists, and it feels like a bit of a fascia family. And we notice we all attracting different clients without trying. They're just coming, but they're rather different people, different, different kind of clients. We're not competing with each other because somehow we just find very different pockets of the community.
Exactly, because it's not the ending web of connection. And everyone is a- attracting different people because it's different person. And what we are stressing as well, and I'm really focused on this in the family, fascia family, as you said, this community, to keep individuality of each person.
Mm.
What we believe within is the freedom of expression, the freedom
Yeah.
of being yourself, the qualities of each person which is bringing to the garden. Because what is making the garden beautiful? If you put only one type of flower, or you have bunch of different flowers, which will be more attractive.
Yeah, I also heard this analogy about the rainbow. The rainbow looks nice because of the different colors, not because of one.
Yeah, exactly. And within the mobilization of the fascia, we are listening and observing actual capacity of distributing the force, the energy for our client in this very moment because we are here and now. We don't look for the pictures from the Instagram or wherever book it's possible to be there. Yes, it's possible, of course. But now you are here. So we need to apply to what is now and help you to understand and to feel actually more than understand. It's possible to change,
Mm.
to remind the body how to distribute the energy through the fascia. Because the one of the main thing is we actually reminding our clients they can distribute the force through different parts of their body because by the lack of the connection or different experiences we losing this and we creating certain by the compensation mechanism we creating certain patterns and we believe this is the best.
Mm.
To be fair, I'm really admiring our ability of compensation.
Yeah, same.
How clever we are to avoid something to anyway get to the point.
Yeah. And I often get to observe this in yoga. You're giving an instruction, and people find a way to somehow make it look similar enough to get away with it.
Exactly. But in the long term, if we're using this compensation mechanism as a natural way of movement, we most likely disturb other structures, or we can destroy other structures even because they are not supposed to be involved, or they don't have enough ease to regenerate. And that's creating the problems.
Yeah. I find it mind-blowing. I've had quite lot of clients that had hip replacements and they have hypermobility. And I've sometimes asked them, you know, when you were going for your assessments with a doctor, has anyone ever looked at you move or stand? No. There's hip pain, there's a new hip. There you go.
Yeah. From this particular thing, for me, it's really disturbing in the way we watching the body as a separate parts, because again, hip is not working by itself, it's connected with other structures. Femur is a part of our knee joint, is connected with the pelvis is connected with the sacrum bone is connected with the lower back directly. So when we exchange one part in this connection field, how it will affect the other parts? And do we think in the way that the all connection is contributing to degenerate and create changes in the femur head? Are we applying approach to affect the whole lower crossing, we call it this way, or lower part of connection? Or we just cut off the head of the femur, put something which is really nicely gliding in the pelvis, and you are free.
Yeah, and from
Where
my observation, they are not really free. They may be free from that particular pain, but then suddenly we realize they are experiencing knee problems. They have problems with their feet. They are having some back issues. So they look no longer to the hip, but suddenly there's still problems.
it's a nice analogy which was used by my friend who is the orthopedic surgeon. Uh, this is like cutting the tallest weed on the field, and then you're expecting the smaller one will not grow. But they will grow
Mm.
because the tallest it will not cover anymore the sun, and the sun will get even more to the smaller one, and you will get the problem again in different parts.
Mhm.
And then you will be convinced it's not related, but it's actually related. That's why on some point when I was really deep in the studying in the classic physiotherapy on my uni, I started to find out there's something missing. Why we are pushed so hardly to think about the shoulder itself or the hip, or why there is so much focus on the spine without taking care of the hips and sacrum bone. And it took me to the journey to my first holistic teacher, Dr. Rakowski, who passed away, but he left a really great understanding of the connection between the joints. But he was standing on the point of the joint manipulation. And he was teaching us how to manipulate joints, each joints in connection, and he was focused on the orthopedic part of this system. But actually, thanks to him, he directed me further. because I finished my course and I asked him what to do because I still have this sensation is something missing. And he said, "Okay, go there and there, check this teacher, Dr. Upledger, maybe look to Tom Mayers. It may bring you more understanding of the wholeness of the process." So the thing is, we can't really solve the problem on the local level. We can solve the symptoms, yes, for sure, but we can't solve the problem on the
Maybe
local
you want
level.
to say we can mask, we can mask the problem.
Yeah, we can mask the problem or we can help to create another compensation.
Mm.
Yeah, but in the long term, everything is connected with everything. And when we have this point, one structure is suffering to the point is the pain is unbearable for us, then we need to really look to the whole system. I know for sure it's not so easy like looking to one part, but when we leave behind the conception of separation in our body, then it's not so difficult. But through the education system, we are feeded in the way to see separate parts of the body.
Well, just like we are looking at separate parts of communities, separate us from nature.
Exactly. Exactly. Because it's all based on the separation of like division, even like with this nervous system, which is above everything. The most important part is the nervous system. But actually, if you look to it, when you have coma, your brain doesn't work, but your body's still alive. So how it's superior to everything else? Your body can live without the brain. But if you look to that in the way your heart will be off, your body will not survive.
Mm.
For example, if you don't have a liver, can you survive? If you lose both kidneys, can you survive?
Mm.
No. So somehow funny way, we, we put our attention to something which is not superior. But it's maybe related with this idea of the religious, the going up, 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 to the sky. So the brain is the closest to the sky. I don't know. Maybe it's coming from there. Uh, anyway, back to the fascia. Fascia is also very important for the brain. And this here we need to also distinguish brain from the mind. All right, the brain is the organ. The mind is a little bit different thing, abstract. It's connected because the chemistry of the brain definitely affecting our mind definitely affecting the chemistry of our brain. This is both way connection. But the brain itself is an organ, important organ. And by the many years, and it's still ongoing, as I can hear from the students of medical schools, we believe, or we taught to believe, that we're using only 10% of up to 10% of our brain, and the rest is dormant. Did you heard about this, Sarah?
Yes, I have.
So this myth is coming from the old research based on the brain activities. The researchers were looking for the electric impulses which were going through the brain tissues on the specific voltage of these impulses. And they conclude we're using in one moment up to 10% of the brain. It was in early 70s. And each book was repeating, and still repeating the thing. But in the meantime, we realized that the structure of the brain is also built with the circulation system, with the lymphatic system, and actually the shape of the brain is related with the fascia, because the fascia is creating the structure for the nerves in the brain. And when modern researchers start to actually check how much of the brain we're using, it's become obvious we're using in one moment, we're using between 92 to 95% of our brain. And you can still ask, what with the rest? The rest is at ease to regenerate. Because our brain, each tissues are going through the process of catabolic and anabolic reactions. So we building up to the high level of efficiency, and then we rebuilding, digesting, and building new, and so on. It's a circle. We looks like we are all the time in one body, but actually we exchange. Someone conclude that full exchange of the cells in the body is taking 7 years, more or less. So each 7 years we are completely new, but still carrying the same DNA. And now we understand that the brain is almost active all the time. And through this connection with the fascia, it has capacity to change the direction of the impulse of the nervous system itself. So when we mobilize the fascia, we actually mobilize certain points in our brain. That's why the prefrontal cortex is connected with the emotions and the higher thinking, but it's also connected with the different parts of the body. And when we're touching and when we're mobilizing the different parts of the body, we're also touching the brain.
Yeah.
Without breaking the skull. You don't need to break the bone.
I remember one person where I did some fascia work in the face, and she said to her it felt like her thoughts were going from here to a different part. Like the way she experienced her mind afterwards was really different, and where her attention was sitting.
Yes, it's exactly that. It's that connection. Some, as we had this conversation, different people, they have a different ability to observe, to self-observation. And it's very often happening that during the session, people, they say, oh, I feel something in my head. Something is happening, some twinkling. They describe it in a different way. It's possible. Yes, it's possible because we're actually touching your brain in this moment, even though my hands are lying on your leg. Because we have these representations of the cortex, which parts of the cortex are responsible for the different parts of the body. It's called humulus. You can find it if you
I
want.
know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also, it's not only the nervous system itself connected this way, it's the fascias as well. So when we have a stuckness in the peripheral part of the body, for example, in my chest, it's not opening, it's stuck and glue, the fascia, it's affecting how my brain is working. So then it's affecting how my mind is working. So when we open this stuckness, we bring it back the flow, it's affecting the brain, and it's affecting the mind. And it's creating awareness, it's creating more access to the consciousness, more ability to be aware what is happening. So probably you experienced that in your practice, Sarah, already. That the people were coming and they said they start to say they don't know why, but they make different choices. It's happened?
Yeah, all the time. What I really enjoy is that all of those changes seem to be effortless and peaceful. They're coming from within. So if you think about language, I would like to, for instance, one example, eat more vegetable, or I no longer want to eat so much gluten, or I don't want to drink so much wine anymore. Instead of I shouldn't, I can't, I have to. So people often try to make changes based on guilt or something like that. And it takes effort and they try and it doesn't work. But those changes that come from within, they are peaceful. They are almost silent. They're just creeping in and suddenly we don't fancy doing something a certain way anymore.
Exactly. Because the one part, what you said, I'm completely agreed. It's based on the shame thing or like emotional pressure to change. And the other is a mental pressure. So we tend to create a list of good habits or changes, especially around so-called the New Year Eve. From this year, I will do my gym twice a week. And we push ourselves, creating a lot of mental pressure to keep this list what mentally we believe is good for us. But it might not be in line with what our body wants in this very moment.
I just had a thought. Is it possible that the way to make change like that is difficult also because, let's say, we are maybe over consuming on alcohol and there's there's a reason why the body's using that as a coping mechanism at the moment because there's something deeper. So if we're just taking this away, then the whole structure feels less balanced. And if we're just trying to extrapolate the habit without thinking about why is it there at this moment in time is difficult. But if we're going to the body and we are removing maybe the thing that is causing us to want to use that habit, then we don't need it anymore. You get my point?
Exactly. I get your point, and you have absolutely right. It's to the point. And the other part of this point is also this all coping mechanism. They were created as a protection mechanism. It's not fair to say it's your fault because you're doing this. In the one hand, it's your fault because you're doing this, but you don't have a consciousness and embodied consciousness what is doing to your body. And on the first place, most of this began from the protection mechanism to allow you to cope with the daily reality wherever you are, however it is around you, because some fragile structure of your psyche or being is threatened. So you start to overeat or drink more alcohol on a
Or
daily
over
basis,
exercise.
or
It's,
overexercise, or
it's
over.
easier to miss because the good habits people often get praise for, but that can also be a problem.
Yeah, we had this. We still have this funny conversation with one of my clients who is over praying. He's doing all sort of religious practices, and he called this way practice. I always create the space for practice. There is nothing more important in life than being in the prayer and practice. And he got to the point he was unemployed. He was not able to sustain his daily needs because he was so much in prayer. But he doesn't want to go to any ashram or cluster or whatever you call it to live there because he was running from the life to the prayers. And it seems to be a good thing to pray. I personally pray every day or most of the days of the week. But it's not the coping mechanism in my case. So this mechanism is usually built to protect ourselves. And when we take it away very quickly, it means the fragile structure will be
Exposed.
open, exposed, and you might be not ready for this exposure. The person might be not ready to be exposed. And it will either create even stronger protective mechanism or will redirect the focus on the therapist to blame therapist to expose it. Because in some ways it will be the crossing the boundaries. It will be the breaking the boundaries. If the person is not ready. But if it's happening that the consciousness is embodying in the body, we start to feel our body, we start to feel safe in the body, and we're preparing ourselves to expose these fragile parts. And we start to understand this coping mechanism is really not serving me in the long term. So it's time to say goodbye.
So
And I'm
fair to
safe.
is it fair to say that this is one reason why the therapist attitude and nervous system and presence is such an integral part in this? I think we talked about it in a different episode, the practice of the peace of the therapist. So if we are exposing something that is really vulnerable and we need to feel safe, we need to feel that sense of safety from the therapist as well.
Yes, we need to meet this fragile part on the ground of peace. And as we talked in the other episode about the therapist's responsibility in the therapeutic process, the main responsibility of the therapist is to take care of himself. That's the main responsibility of the therapist, to maintain our own peace, our own life, our own being, our body, everything. To be able to meet the person on the most peaceful level which is available in this very moment. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean you need to be perfect as a therapist, because we are all in the same game, which is called the human life. So we can have better days or worse days. It may happen. But the thing is to be able to back to the balance, to back to the peace and practice the peace. That's the responsibility of the therapist. And the cooperation with our clients, this is the other thing. I mean, when we're going through the process, we're cooperating. We cannot take the whole responsibility for someone's healing. But our part is how we maintain ourselves, how we keeping ourselves.
Is it, could we say, is a subconscious setting of example of the state of the person. So it's almost we are showing the other body is possible to feel that way and inviting it.
Yes, exactly. Because the most basic for us, deep inside, for each of us, is ability to feel peace. And most desirable thing is to be at peace. And when we're meeting someone who is imitating, who is radiating this energy beyond the words, but it's matching the words, whatever we're speaking of, with our body radiation, with our mind radiation, because it's all the energy. Then the other person can sense it, even if it's not logically understandable at the moment, but we can sense it, and then we subconsciously say, "Oh, it's possible. Oh, wow, that feels nice." And I had this, for example, conversation. I met the old friend from the high school recently, and we had a few minutes of conversation, and he was like, "You change a lot. You probably stopped drink alcohol, isn't it?" I said, "Yes, and a little bit beyond that." Because we were partying a lot together. And yes, I had this period of life when alcohol was my way of relaxing. But I understood it's not the way, really long-term way of relaxing. So I decided to not drink without fight. Just one day I woke up and I said, "No, thank you. I go in a different way." And the least thing what we need is judgment as a human beings from the other side. And that's something which is happening subconsciously in the field of the therapy when we're coming to the therapeutic setup and we're trying to diagnose someone. So then we're starting to judge. Oh, he is this because he is using the backpack only on the right shoulder. This is creating that. This is what we need to leave on the side for a while. It can contribute, that's truthful. But what we want to do is to meet the person in this very moment, how it is in this very moment. Because when we go to this assumption judging thing, then we're creating whole story in our mind, truthful or not, but it's taking us away from the level of peace.
Mm.
And to really understand the other human being, why he suffer, she suffer this way or that way, create this habit or that habit, you will have to go 10 miles in their shoes. Do you want that? I don't. I have enough fun with my own shoes.
But also from my experience, these habits, they are layering. You know, right now it might be the bag, and if you remove the bag, there's something else, and underneath is something else. So it's not that simple. Things have happened throughout the lifetime that have created the patterns, just like, you know, where you walk the path, you slowly taking away the grass. It doesn't happen overnight.
Exactly. I'm completely agree with you. And the other one, which is referring also now to me, is that the grass in the neighbor's garden is always more green. So we think that the person has easier. I had a hard life, but this one was, for him, it was easier. He was born under the lucky star. No, the
It's
person just
also
good work.
my observation that people's attitude to meet themselves and be honest with themselves really determines how quickly they move through the process with, you know, good results. Because if you
Yeah,
don't want to see where you're responsible as well, if you have some resistance, then maybe you're not ready to shift that pattern.
exactly. And it's not up to us to judge your readiness. You are ready or not. Who am I to make this decision? You should change this. No, I'm not. I can help you to rebalance your fascia, to reconnect with the body, to ground yourself within the body, to feel at home again, to remember how it was to feel at home, and then you will choose what to do with it. That's why I'm not taking the whole responsibility for your process. I'm taking my part. That I'm 100% serious in terms of taking care of my side of the things. And this is what we also teaching on the course. And sometimes people are like, okay, so how many sessions you can do during the day? You can do 10 sessions or 5 or whatever. It depends on you. How you can maintain yourself. How you can really, in long term, go ahead with maintaining for the number of sessions. Because there is not good number for everyone. And there are also periods of time in our life when you can handle more, and the periods where you can handle less. And funny enough, as you said about this attraction of different people, some therapists they experience this like, oh, I have a period of time when I have less sessions, like let's say 2, 3 per day. Yeah, okay. And maybe it's related with your life in general. Oh yeah, because I was moving the house.
Yeah, I've observed this for a long time, that whatever happens in my, you know, booking capacity is just right for looking back over it. There's been times where I thought, you know, there's some strange audio stuff going on suddenly. Where I was thinking I should be maybe doing more sessions. And then when I look back at it at the month, and this was perfect. I really needed that time for something else.
Exactly. Because sometimes we don't realize in this very moment what we need.
Mm.
But there is a higher or different, I will say, to get out from this up situation, different level of connection with everything what is happening around us, and we have what exactly we are ready for in this moment. An acceptance of that is very helpful. I think we getting to the end of this, so I would like to summarize, especially to give you the idea that mobilization is something which is helping you to enhance your own capacity and your own fascia according to where you are in this very moment. And manipulation is to push you to the boundaries of the capacity of the fascia in general, which might be very painful process. And very often from our experience, it's impossible to maintain this level in the long term. And our goal is to bring long-term changes, which will help our clients and ourselves to live happily. Thank you, Sarah, for your time and for your contribution to all of that. Would you like to add something to this summary?
Well, I would like to say we have some nice courses coming up. We would be excited to invite some more students to join us. You can check Limerick Academy website for the up-to-date offerings. So head to the website and see if there's something happening in a country near you, because we are operating in different countries.
Yeah, and if you want to see more episodes, just subscribe our channel, give us thumb up or hearts, that will help us to create more content for you. And if you have any questions to that, please don't hesitate to drop the comments under this video.
Yeah.